Chapter 1. Nothing to Do. Rainy afternoons usually came with a sense of gloom, and this particular Saturday afternoon was no exception. Even though it was the middle of May, it was so dark outside that it looked like a late November evening. "What should we do now?" asked Oliver. As he spoke, he turned toward his best friend, Tyrese. "We've played all of the video games Mrs. Stark owns." Tyrese scoffed. "Yeah, and every single one of them was older than I am." He stood up from his spot on the floor in front of the old television set and joined Oliver by the window. They stared out the window, watching as the rain poured down onto the pavement. It felt as though the rain would never end. "Hungry?" a voice asked from behind them. The boys jumped in unison. Stark. She babysat the two boys after school a couple of nights each week. They would also go to Mrs. Stark's on Saturday afternoons when their parents were working. "Sorry to startle you guys. I figured you might need some food to get you through this dreary afternoon," she said, smiling warmly. Oliver and Tyrese eagerly followed their babysitter to the coffee table in the center of the room. They ate their sandwiches so fast that they barely took time to breathe. "What have you boys been up to?" Mrs. Stark asked them. "Well, we finished our homework, played some games, and watched some TV, Tyrese said. "But now we're out of things to do." Mrs. Stark put a hand on her chin and furrowed her brow. She said. "What could there possibly be to do around here?" Oliver and Tyrese looked at each other and grinned. They knew that their beloved babysitter was probably just teasing them. She usually had something up her sleeve when it came to lazy afternoon activities. "Well, I've been meaning to clean out the attic for a while," she continued. A teasing grin stretched across her face. "You two could help me with that." Oliver and Tyrese looked at each other and groaned. Their excitement had suddenly disappeared. Mrs. Stark laughed. "It will be a lot more interesting than you might think, I promise. Besides, I'll pay you each $10, and you might come across some treasures up there. Do we have a deal?" The boys huddled together for a moment as though they were at football practice, whispering to each other as they made up their minds. They each wanted to buy a few new comic books from the store down the street. With $20 between the two of them, they could buy their comic books, and maybe some candy too. After a minute of discussion, the boys turned around. They both stuck a hand out toward Mrs. Stark. "You have a deal," Oliver said as he shook her hand. Mrs. Stark's eyes sparkled a little more brightly. The two boys wondered what treasures they could possibly find in their babysitter's attic. Chapter 2. The Mysterious Chest. Mrs. Stark pulled down the ladder to the attic and motioned for the boys to go up ahead of her. "Don't worry," she said. "It's safe. I was up there earlier this week, and I'll be right behind you." She pulled 3 headlamps out of her pocket, turned them on, and slipped one over each boy's head as well as her own. "But it's pretty dark up there, so you'll probably need these." Oliver climbed the ladder one rung at a time. Tyrese was right behind him. Oliver lifted his head above the opening to the attic. He peered to the left and then to the right. "Achoo!" Oliver's sneeze shook up a pile of dust on the attic floor in front of him. He waved his hand in front of his face to clear the hazy cloud. His eyes slowly adjusted to the darkness of the attic. In one corner there was a pile of books that was almost as tall as Oliver. He could smell the familiar scent of old paper. It reminded him of the old public library, where Mrs. Stark would sometimes take them on Saturdays. In another corner, there was a chair with several marionette dolls hanging from it. A draft coming from a crack in the window pane made the clothes on the dolls gently sway in the breeze, causing them to appear as though they were dancing. But on the other side of the room, there was something that really caught Oliver's eye. It was a big chest. It looked similar to the ones he'd seen in his favorite pirate movies. Oliver was curious. He pulled himself all the way up into the attic, and he crawled toward the chest. "Hey, Tyrese, come and take a look at this!" Oliver shouted. Tyrese's head popped up above the attic entrance. He climbed up the rest of the ladder, Then he extended a hand to Mrs. Stark and helped her up to join them. Oliver already had the chest open, and he was digging through its contents. He pulled out a few old scarves and beaded necklaces, as well as a stack of envelopes bound together with a piece of twine. "What are these?" Oliver asked, holding up the envelopes for Mrs. Stark to see. She took the bundle from Oliver's hands and slowly opened the top letter. "These are letters from my pen pal. His name was Jacob, and we used to be neighbors," she said. "His father and my father were friends in the 1960s. They both served in the military and were stationed together in Okinawa. When they returned, they moved to Indiana and bought houses beside each other. But when I was about your age, my father moved our family to Nebraska, and Jacob's family moved to Maryland. At first, we would often write to each other, but the letters became less frequent as we grew older." Mrs. Stark continued, "These letters are more than 50 years old. Shall I read one to you?" The boys nodded. Mrs. Stark cleared her throat and began to read. "Dear Josephine, I went to the carnival today with my mother and my sister. I was going to ride the Ferris wheel, but when I got to the front of the line, I was seized with fear. I couldn't do it. I sat on a bench at the ride's entrance instead. Now I wish I had gone, but I guess there's always next year. I hope that our families plan that picnic they have been talking about lately. It's been 2 years since we've seen each other. That's too long to go without seeing a friend. I can't wait to hear how your summer is going. Yours truly, Jacob." Oliver noticed that Mrs. Stark's eyes had become misty. It looked as though she was about to cry. "Is everything all right?" Oliver asked. Mrs. Stark cleared her throat. "Yes, everything is okay. I get a little sentimental when I think about Jacob, that's all." Oliver and Tyrese looked at each other and frowned. They had never seen her so emotional. Mrs. Stark handed the envelope to Oliver to put back into the old chest. But before Oliver tossed the letters into the dusty old chest, he glanced at the name that was handwritten on each envelope. "Jacob Pepper," Oliver read to himself. He didn't want to forget the name, so he said it to himself 3 times. Later that day, after the clouds had cleared and the boys had been picked up from Mrs. Stark's house, Oliver called Tyrese to discuss what had happened that day. They agreed that their babysitter's behavior was out of character, and they were both concerned. "Think about how you'd feel if you and I lost touch," Tyrese said. "That would be terrible." "Yeah," Oliver agreed. "And for so many years. Could you imagine?" Mrs. Stark seemed really upset. "We should do something," Tyrese said. Oliver could almost hear the wheels turning in Tyrese's head as he was thinking. "I know," Tyrese continued. "Let's find Jacob. Imagine how surprised Mrs. Stark would be." Oliver loved that idea. They decided to meet up at Oliver's house after school on Monday to form a plan. They needed to find the answer to an important question. Where in the world was Jacob Pepper? Chapter 3. The Search is On. Monday evening couldn't come quickly enough. After the last school bell rang, Oliver and Tyrese put on their helmets, hopped on their bikes, and pedaled as fast as they could all the way to Oliver's house. When they walked through the doorway, Oliver's mom was standing in the hall. Her arms were crossed, and she had an amused smile on her face. "I know what you two want." She walked over to the coffee table in the living room, picked up her tablet, punched in her password, and passed the tablet to her son. "Can I get you guys some lemonade? Playing detective can't make you thirsty." Oliver shook his head. "We aren't playing anything, Mom. We're trying to help Mrs. Stark." Oliver, Tyrese, and Oliver's mom sat down on the couch. Oliver entered the name of Mrs. Stark's long-lost friend into the browser search bar, and a long list of search results flooded the screen. "There are thousands of results for this search," Oliver sighed. "How are we going to find the right Jacob Pepper?" Oliver's mom smiled. "Well, what do you know about Jacob?" Oliver thought for a second. Mrs. Stark's father and Jacob's father met in Okinawa. Where is that anyway? Oliver's mom took the tablet from Oliver and pulled up a map of the United States She scrolled to the left and zoomed in on Japan. "This is Okinawa right here," she said as she pointed to the map on the tablet screen. "It's an island in Japan. The United States Navy took over this Japanese island from 1945 until 1972. There are still many U.S. military bases there today." Oliver snapped his fingers. "We should try to find out what Mrs. Stark's name was before she married Mr. Stark. That information could point us in the right direction." "But how can we figure that out?" Tyrese asked. "Let's see if we can find any information about their wedding," Oliver's mom suggested. "Sometimes newspapers keep online archives of their old issues." Tyrese and Oliver agreed that this was an excellent idea. Oliver's mom typed Josephine Stark wedding into the internet search engine and pressed enter. There was only one result. It was a scanned image of an old newspaper clipping. Oliver squinted, looking closely at the couple in the picture. "That's her! That's Mrs. Stark," he said. He zoomed in on the picture. "At least I think it is. She was a lot younger when this picture was taken," he said. Oliver's mom pointed to the man beside the young woman in the picture. "That certainly looks like Mrs. Stark's late husband. I knew him briefly before he passed away, but he had a smile that you couldn't forget. And this is from a local newspaper." Tyrese read the headline, "Josephine L. Carter weds James T. Stark." He smiled. "We found her." "So what do we do now?" Oliver asked. "Now we begin the real detective work. But first," Oliver's mom said, "how about that lemonade?" Chapter 4. The Big Reveal. It wasn't until Thursday that the boys returned to see Mrs. Stark. They wanted to make sure her surprise was ready before seeing her again. They parked their bikes by the porch railing, ran to the door, and rang the doorbell. Mrs. Stark opened the door. She was holding a thick book under her arm, and she had a cup of tea in her hand. "How have my favorite boys been?" she asked. "The week always goes by so slowly when I don't have you two around. Please come in." Oliver and Tyrese walked through the doorway and into the hall. Each boy was holding something behind his back. "We've been very busy over the past few days," said Oliver. "Yes," said Tyrese. "We were working on a special new project." "For school?" Mrs. Stark asked. The boys smiled and shook their heads. "Nope," said Oliver. The boys showed Mrs. Stark the items they were hiding behind their backs. Tyrese was holding a black and white picture, and Oliver was holding his mother's tablet. The picture was a portrait of a man, and the tablet was displaying a special email. "What's all this?" Mrs. Stark asked, squinting to see what the boys were holding. "Here, read this email," Oliver said as he handed Mrs. Stark the tablet. "Dear Oliver and Tyrese, thank you so much for getting in touch with me. It has been many years since I have heard from Josephine. If you could put me in touch with her so that we can catch up, it would mean a lot to me. I'm happy to see she has such wonderful friends. I look forward to hearing from you. Sincerely, Jacob Pepper." Mrs. Stark was speechless for a moment. Jacob Pepper. It has been decades since I last heard from him. She looked up from the tablet with a surprised look on her face. "How did you find him?" Oliver smiled proudly. "My mom helped us research where his family moved to. He worked for the state of Maryland for years, so we were able to find him through employment records we found on the state's website. But we didn't want to say that you would meet up with him until we had spoken with you first," explained Tyrese. Mrs. Stark looked at the photo that Tyrese was holding. "This is a picture of Jacob," she said excitedly. "We got this photograph from a column that he wrote for a Baltimore magazine. It was lucky for us that he was very involved in the community." Mrs. Stark hugged Oliver and Tyrese. They hugged her back. "I don't know what to say. This is the nicest thing anyone has ever done for me. This deserves a special round of drinks." She poured them each a tall flute of sparkling juice, and they made a toast to celebrate. "Two friends, old and new," Mrs. Stark exclaimed. She was happy to have such thoughtful friends. As their glasses clinked, Tyrese and Oliver looked at each other and smiled. Chapter 5. Catching Up. A few days later, Oliver was doing his homework on his mom's computer when he heard a familiar beep, which meant that his mom had a new email. He called his mom over. She opened her email and brought up the new message. It was addressed to Oliver and Tyrese. Dear Oliver and Tyrese, thank you once again for putting me in touch with Jacob. We met up for coffee on Saturday and talked for 3 hours. He married a lovely woman when he was in his 20s, and they had 2 children who are now grown up and still live in Maryland. The Peppers live on a farm and spend their days tending to their chickens and hosting karaoke competitions in their barn. I'm going over next weekend. Could you both help me pick a song? Anyway, I will see you both tomorrow after school. Yours truly, Mrs. Stark. Reading those words gave Oliver the same warm and excited feeling that he felt when he woke up on his birthday or when his teacher congratulated him for doing his best on a test. Oliver began to respond to the email, but then he stopped in a hurry. He had come up with a better idea. He got up quickly and was about to dash for the front door before his mother stopped him. Where are you going so fast? She asked. Can we go to Mrs. Stark's house? His mother looked confused. Mrs. Stark's? You aren't supposed to go over there until tomorrow, but I guess an extra visit couldn't hurt. Yes, I'll take you. Is it okay if we pick up Tyrese on the way? He asked eagerly. Yes, of course, she replied. Thanks, Mom. There's no time like the present to let your friends know you care about them.